to
Oh yeah,
to
go on.
briefly welcome Venerable
Okay.
Robina back to
Thanks.
our virtual Gompa. It's been too long, although we had some morning meditations. But as Anna was saying, this is the first class that we've had in a while. So thank you so much for finding the time to be with us. Venerable was
Happy.
instrumental, has been instrumental over the last number of years, relaunching, reimagining our center. So we give credit to Venerable's efforts for all of the benefit that we're able to extend due to her efforts. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Don. Thank you, everybody. Happy to see you all. So happy to see you all. Well, okay then. Here we are on a Sunday. Here we are on a Sunday evening in New York, and Sunday sort of late afternoon in Santa Fe, and Lord knows where else we all are. LA, yes, it's different there. So, people, dearest ones, what to talk about, what to think about. Yeah, I just did one of those little videos I do, and the topic I did was we helping others. When we think of how do I help others, we have questions like, oh, I've got an angry daughter, how can I help her? I've got my sick grandmother, my grandmother's depressed, how can I help her? So physically is one thing, but I mean helping mentally is a whole nother discussion, isn't it? And so we know, okay, we motivate here. We're going to do this little talk for an hour, questions, discussions, so we can take some tools from this, okay? This is our motivation. Sorry. Thinking we're going to take some tools from this, even if it's 1% of it to put into practice, then it's really beneficial. So helping others, so as His Holiness says, I know I quote it all the time, compassion is not enough. You've got to have wisdom. And Lama Zopa says it very bluntly. He says, meaning well is not enough. You've got to have wisdom. So I think when it comes to physical things, like we really understand this, So if you know nothing about nutrition, I don't care how much compassion you have. Keep your mouth shut and mind your own business and don't give me advice because you don't have the wisdom. But this is our trouble when it comes to mental things. We all think we're qualified to do everything. We have no sense that we need to be qualified first in order to advise somebody, you know. It's practical. I mean, if you can't even tell someone how to put a Band-Aid on, then you're not qualified to help them. I don't care how much compassion you have. If you know nothing about nutrition, you can't just rab it on and do your best to help somebody. You've got to and that we understand when it comes to teaching music, teaching cooking, everything. We get it. You've got to have the knowledge. But when it comes to helping people mentally with their problems, we don't think that. We just don't, we have no, we just think, oh, I mean, well, you're trying to help somebody and she's really hopeless, she's depressed and I can't help her. But if you haven't worked on your own mind, if you don't even understand what depression is, if you don't understand anger and you've got an angry child, what'll I do? My daughter's angry with me. If you haven't dealt with your anger, then you are not qualified to help her. And in fact, when she gets angry with you, all it does is trigger your anger and then makes it even more complicated. But we don't see that. We don't see that what's inside our mind, determines the way we receive somebody else. So it's wonderful to want to help people, but kindly be qualified before you open your mouth. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't do your best, but be conscious about what you do know and what you don't know. And the fact of the matter is, it's just, again, like nutrition. If you know nothing about nutrition, I mean, like zero, and you see a person who's evidently kind of like, say, obese and needs some help, you can't just, you just can't make it up. But the more you know, the more qualified you are to help the person. And because you know it yourself, you'll have empathy. But so often what happens is, you don't know you've got anger. You don't really realize you're angry, or you are, but then another angry person comes along and you're not realizing that your anger completely pollutes the way you see this person. So you're not qualified to help them because you're just sending it back. So by working on your own mind, knowing your own mind is absolutely vital. And that really is the wisdom wing. And this is why, when we look at the Lam Rim, I mean, that's really how all the instructions are structured. But we don't kind of get it like that, because the essence of the Lam Rim, and we talk about this all the time, the very first level of practice, I mean, we know that the Lamas refer to it as the practice of renunciation. That just sounds so boring and so kind of religious. And you never think of the practice of renunciation as being what qualifies you to then go to do the compassion wing. We don't hear it this way. We can't hear it this way, but this is exactly what it is. So if you try to do the path of renunciation, what's it mean? What are you renouncing? Well, guess what? You're renouncing your suffering. And you're renouncing the causes of your suffering. Well, this is, noble truth number 1 and noble truth number 2. There is suffering, hun, and guess what? There are causes. So this is what you, and Buddha's talking to you. Whenever we sit and hear the teachings and we hear about all these things, I wish my boyfriend was here, I wish my mother was here, all we think is that they need it. Well, I'm sorry, Buddha's talking to you, He's talking to us. And he's telling us that, yes, we suffer. The very first level of suffering is when all the bad things happen, and that's karma. But the second level is about the mind, And this is where it's like, as Lama Yeshe always says, be your own therapist. You need to learn to understand your own mind, because your mind, what goes on in your mind, determines what you do with your body and speech, which you first control, and then you work on your mind. And what goes on in your mind, as Lama Zopa says, the way the world out there appears back to us, so your angry daughter, let's say, and she might be angry. You're absolutely correct. She is really angry. But when you don't factor in your anger, then you're in serious trouble, because her anger will appear a lot worse than it really is, because it's your own anger that's interpreting her anger, which is making like double trouble. So, the way she appears back to you, and yes, indeed, she might be angry. The way she appears back to you, as Lama Zopa says, is in the aspect. That's how they say it in Buddhist psychology. It sounds very quaint, but it's really powerful. This angry person, or whatever it is, the world out there, appears back to us in the aspect of whatever's in my mind. This is why this lovely analogy of a mirror, Lama Yeshe talks about this in his Mahamudra teachings, that and it's a lovely way to see the mind. It's a shockingly powerful, actually, that our mind is like a mirror. Meaning, we know, it's shocking to hear this, because we don't think of it like this. When we think of our angry daughter, we think we're this pristine, clear person observing this really angry person. We're not observing how our own anger, our own impatience, our own annoyance, our own depression is interpreting her anger, or the world's anger. So as the mirror analogy, if we think about this is really, I tell you, it's realizing emptiness. That it's obvious that if a mirror is clear, then whatever it reflects will be reflected accurately. But if your mirror is kind of polluted, if your mirror is dirty or scratched, then whatever appears, and this is the point, in the mirror of your mind is a mirror. And whatever appears back to you, the outside world, the people, the things, the events, they appear to us, to our mind, according to what's in the mind. So if I'm feeling self-piteous, if I'm feeling angry, if I'm feeling paranoid, if I'm feeling jealous, then of course it's kind of profoundly affect the way the world out there appears to me. But we don't see that. We think when we say he did this and she did that, and that is what is going on, we are thinking we are interpreting it really accurately, objectively. But it's so clear when we listen to the Buddha's teachings that that's not possible until you're an enlightened being. So then you see a cake. You don't observe that your attachment to cake is completely polluting the way the cake appears to you. It's sort of obvious if we think about it, but this is happening every second of the day. It's so evident, it's so clear. The cake appears to you when your stomach is empty and you're full of excitement and attachment and anticipation. The cake will look delicious. We just so know this. But 5-10 minutes later, when you've eaten 3 pieces and you are now stuffed, there's cake on the plate, there's some left. How does it appear now? It's not even tricky. It's just so obvious, but we don't join the dots. It appears disgusting. So first it appeared divine, and now it appears disgusting. The cake is sitting there very passively, hasn't done anything, hasn't got moldy yet, hasn't even gone cold yet. But look at the difference. But we don't join the dots. But this is how we're seeing the world. We see the world through the lenses of what's our own mind. It's very shocking if we think about it, and we should be very humbled by this. But we actually think we're seeing reality all the time. So one day you're feeling extra paranoid and you describe what's going on in the world. You really believe you're describing and you have an accurate assessment of the outside world as if you're this clear-eyed person and that's what's going on in your mind is playing no role at all. Well, it's literally impossible to see the world like that until you realize emptiness, until you've achieved Buddhahood. Everything we see is through the lenses of what's in our mind. And as long as we've got delusions of some description or other, it's going to be coloring the way we see things and see people and events. There can still be objective truth there. It is a chocolate cake. That's still an objective truth. We label that chocolate cake. But the chocolate cake you see when you've got your attachment glasses on, and the chocolate cake you see when you got your aversion glasses on, does not look like the same cake. So that's how we have to see. So if you want, so my answer, how can I, Joe, the person who says, how can I help my crazy daughter, Well, you got to first help yourself. It's not joking. How do I help a person play piano? It's not rocket science. Go play piano first. It's not rocket science, but it's kind of a shock to us to think this, That's why the wisdom wing's got to come first. That's why the working on your own mind's got to come first. You're just not qualified to help others until you have some understanding of your own mind. It's so clear, but it's not cosmic. It's so practical, So you want to help others? The answer is learn to help yourself first. I mean, that's the answer. That's the answer. Because when you have worked on your mind, when you've worked on your anger and your paranoia and your jealousy and your, then when you do see somebody, you can have much more empathy and more clarity because you now understand where that person's coming from. So like if you know yourself, if you've really got masses of, let's say in your life, I mean, lots of people have terrible lives, bad things happen. Some people have really heavy duty karma. We know that one day after another, terrible things happen, much suffering. People abuse you, they misuse you, they harm you. This happens. This is the world. That's not made up. That's fact, But how we interpret it, if we've still got masses of self-pity, which is the irony of ego, attachment, this huge assumption. Attachment, you see, is this kind of like this huge assumption. Attachment at the most subtle level is at the level of assumption. It's just like implicit. Attachment is it's this energy, this implicit assumption that somehow I only deserve good things. So when the bad things happen, the shock to us is so terrible. And what this is the part that's worst. Why we suffer is not because the person is mean to us. This is too shocking for words. This is all Buddha is telling us. The main reason we suffer is not because the person was mean to me, but because we have this primordial assumption, this demand, this panic-stricken emotional hunger, trying to get the good things. So to look into our minds is not easy. It's really not easy. It's really not easy, I tell you. Just observe our own minds, It's extremely powerful, extremely difficult. But we've got to start. That's it. That's the job of being a Buddhist. Identify the delusions and the virtues. Distinguish between facts and fiction. It's very hard, actually. But that's the job. That's the job. In other words, the way we train ourselves, like something goes on, something like you're just at the traffic lights and the light is red and you're late and you're cursing the red light, something really simple. So And that's what happens. What we do is we interpret the external event. A person, barges in front of you on the road, or a person's mean to you in the shop, or, or your child is unkind to you, or whatever the event might be. What looms large for us, what we see, what we feel, what we remember, is the event. That's what happened, we'll say. But what we've got to look at is what glasses have you got on at the time. So if you've got patient glasses on, that event will appear very differently. If you've got kindness glasses, it'll appear very different. If you've got attachment glasses, it'll appear different. That's what we have to look at. What was in your mind when that red light appeared? When the red light appeared to you and you interpret it, what part of your mind is interpreting it? Is it attachment? Is it anger? Is it outrage? When a person's mean to you, when a person, and someone else can even say, yes, I heard them say the mean words. When that person's mean to you and you experience a certain way, you think you're seeing objective truth, but you've got to look into your own mind and observe which, let's say, delusion is there that is coloring that event, or which virtue is there which changes the way the event appears to you. That's what we have to do. We have to look into the mind. So something happens out there, person's mean to us, don't look out there, look into your mind. What arose? Was it anger? Was it impatience? Was it paranoia? Was it self-pity? Was it jealousy? Was it resentment? Check your own mind, because that's what's interpreting it. This is what practice is. This is what practice is every day. This is what practice is. It's intense, I tell you, because we are addicted to jumping on the event as sort of like as an objective bystander, seeing reality. No, we're seeing our own projections every second, until you hardly realize you're seeing your own projections every second. It doesn't mean there's not some truth there. So that's why we have to distinguish the facts from the fictions. It's not as if you're making everything up. There is a chocolate cake there, but the way it appears to you. There is a person who's mean to you, your ex-boyfriend. It's fact. There is a person who's mean to you. Your daughter did abuse you. It's a fact. But the way it appears to you is through the lenses, your own mind. And that's the work to be done, This is the wisdom wing. And then if you want to help the other person, which is the compassion wing, then you have got to have that's when you've got to be clear-eyed. And you're going to be clear-eyed about the other person when you know yourself well. And when you can see what's informing your ability to see the other person, It's really quite subtle, quite intense. This is practice. So one day it might be more the compassion side. You just lift, just don't worry about what's here. Just go out there and help somebody. Do something right there. Another time it might be the wisdom wing that you have to do, You have to know how to approach different times, different days in our practice, So one really powerful way to apply the wisdom wing in how we see the world it's extremely helpful. So we do live in this world, which is a really busy world, and we see the world through the lenses, through our iPads and our phones and our televisions and God knows what, right? I mean, that's what we see the world through. They're the places we see the world. So naturally, automatically, what happens is we have an opinion. We all love to have an opinion. And of course, we all think we're right, And then we stand back as if we're so pure, and then we judge people. He this, she that, they this, the politicians this, blah, 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 right? But a powerful way to apply this wisdom wing approach, which is the approach of you learning about your mind, that's the wisdom wing, then the world is a rich, delicious place that you can learn masses from every single day. So when you might, I don't know, I mean, you can tell I'm old because I don't read social media. I put things on there, but I don't use social media. I read newspapers. I buy subscriptions to magazines and newspapers. So you can tell I'm really old. That's how I get all my news. I pick up my iPad and I read my Financial Times and my New York Times and my Washington Post and my Wall Street Journal and my Vogue and my New Yorker and my Economist. They're still subscriptions. They're my big expenditures in a year. And I read, not every single word, but I read. You learn. And what I'm learning about is human beings. I don't care what the politics are. That's their business. I'm learning about human beings. It's grist for the mill. It's rich, delicious grist for the mill. I mean, isn't it? If you're trying to get compassion, it's the way the Lamas talk, the way the Tibetans talk. We need suffering sentient beings. If you are trying to get compassion, this is the compassion now. I'm talking about wisdom before. I'll go back to wisdom in a minute. But if you're trying to learn compassion, you've got to be in the middle of the garbage dump. You've got to be in the middle of the insanity of the human world, because that's where the suffering beings are. How can you possibly have compassion if you never meet suffering sentient beings? If you live in your little trees in the bush and eat your carrots and eat your pure food and put your compost out, I'm very happy for you. But you're not helping sentient beings. Trees want you to leave them alone. Insects want you to leave them alone. But if you want to help people, you better go live in Liverpool or London or New York City or where the chaos is, because that's where the crazies are, and they're the ones who need help. So as Lama Zopa, and especially as Geshe Zopa says, the bodhisattvas need their enemies, best one of all. So when you try to help others, you need to be around suffering sentient beings. But you're not, but as Pabonka Rinpoche says, you need to be a suitable vessel to really qualify to do this outrageous level of helping others, which they call exchanging self for others. And that's the wisdom wing. So how to work on the wisdom wing side, meaning how to learn about your mind when you see the crazies. All I got to do is read the newspaper. Let's say there's a politician whose views I don't agree with. Let's say I don't agree with Mr. Trump's views. Let's just say, I mean, it's fine. Let's just say I don't. Then instead of sitting on my high horse, listen to Mr. Trump. Who does he think he is? This evil person, that. Excuse me, who the hell do I think I am? So instead of that, all you got to do is you check, I go, well, there's lying, there's hubris, there's anger, there's jealousy, there's arrogance. And I say to myself, I recognize that. And I do. There's not a single delusion in Mr. Trump or even in a psychopath. This might sound extreme now, okay? But a psychopath, like we call, is a person who's got extreme delusions. That's all. Extreme anger, extreme self-cherishing, extreme attachment. I mean, there's only so many delusions in the world, according to Buddha's view. And some person, what we call psychotic, has just got extreme delusions. That's all. So there's nothing in there that I don't see in myself. Okay, I mightn't want to jump on little girls. I mightn't want to cut people up and eat their brains. But I understand habit. I understand attachment. Join the universe, So when you can look at the world for the wisdom wing component, then you'll be so happy to learn about the world. You won't get depressed and angry and freaked out, which is what we do now. You'll learn from it. You'll go, well, I recognize that. Or you say, thank you for showing me how not to be. It's an incredibly powerful teaching. So you don't get distressed then. You learn from it. Then the compassion wing is, what can I do to help? So there's a way you can use the world every second to help you deal with your mind, and then to know how you can help others. All of it is grist for the mill, So of course, if you're very fragile and you've got masses of anger and you can't cope with being around other angry people, then good, keep away. If you can't cope with certain things, you keep away. Like if you can't cope with alcohol, you keep away from it. Pretty reasonable. Be intelligent. You got to know where you're at, what you can cope with. Be intelligent. But there's ways of handling things that won't make us crazy. Why we get crazy is because we can't cope with what we're seeing. And what we really can't cope with is not what we're seeing, but with our responses to it, our intense attachment, our intense anger, our intense fear, our intense jealousy, our resentment. That's what causes us so much suffering, not the external world. This sounds very shocking, but it's literally true. I mean, when you're at a certain level of being a bodhisattva, when you've given up egos to some degree, and there's no thought of attachment, and there's no thought of anger, then, it doesn't distress you. Of course it doesn't, because what distresses us is delusions, because they're the lenses through which we experience the outside world. So we have to know where we're at also. We have to know what we can handle, what we can cope with. We have to know our own mind intimately. So now ask me some questions. Come on. Anything at all. Start the ball rolling.
I can ask a question if it's okay. Or
Sure.
actually,
Go, yeah.
so this has been very helpful for me in a current situation with my mom,
Good. Yes.
who is experiencing deteriorating dementia. And I I was not understanding why I couldn't cope with it. Why I was it fear? Was it just sadness? I don't know. But now I'm realizing I think it's the attachment.
Uh-huh.
Is it?
Good point. No, darling, you're really profoundly, but it's so true because attachment's multifaceted, but this attachment, the one you're talking, is because, okay, first of all, do you love your mum or are you angry with your mum? What's your relationship with your mother?
I love her. I love her.
Okay, good. So then you're seeing her suffering pretty nakedly, right? And because attachment is inside all of us, and it's so subtle, it's so pervasive, it's always just there. It is this hunger for everything to be lovely. So when we meet a situation, especially our beloveds who are showing suffering, then our poor attachment just can't cope. So it really is right. But this attachment is so subtle, and it seems almost cruel to say that that's why we're suffering, but it is. And that's because we can't, when we meet things that our attachment doesn't want, which is discomfort, then we can't cope. So so how are you managing then? Are you able to help your darling mum?
I think so now going back to the first part of this
Yep.
discussion,
Yep.
which is that I'm not in a place where I can help her.
I
So
see.
I have to find resources to do that.
Okay.
So
You mean in a place mentally or physically? I didn't quite get the point.
I'm not a doctor.
Oh, I see.
I'm a medical doctor.
No, I understand your point, but you're able to supply what she needs. You're able to
Yeah,
facilitate.
I can try. Yes.
You live close to your mother?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can still be kind to her and loving and hold her hand and all that, can't you? Or not? That's not appropriate.
No, I can. But it becomes hard sometimes because I see the changes in her. Sometimes it makes me angry, like she's this increasing paranoia.
I see. Okay. So you get angry and impatient with her, you mean?
Yes.
But you can try to not be, isn't it? For your sake as much as anything, isn't it? Don't you think? So you try, you mean you try to stay away from her because you can't cope. Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes I do. I leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does she like you being around? Are you supportive?
She
Does
does.
in general she's pleased to see you?
She does, but I can't stay with her forever.
No, you can't do that. That's not appropriate. But you can make decisions. This is important. Are you feeling pressured by some demand that you do more? Are you feeling there's an assumption somewhere from her or from other parts of the family or what?
I think it's just from me. I'm seeing it.
You're
Other
feeling a
parts
bit
of the
guilty, like you
family,
should be there. So you're feeling like you're guilty. You should be there all the time doing more or something.
yeah, because the rest of the family is either ignoring it or denying it.
I see. Okay. Does she live on her own?
She's with my dad.
Oh,
They're
okay.
separated, but
Okay. So this is where, okay, darling. So listen, this is where whatever you can do. But the thing is, so first, again, we ask the question: when does she like your presence, even for 5 minutes? Are you good for her?
yes.
Okay, darling. Then if that's the case, you're a very precious gift for her. So then you just have to pace yourself. Don't feel guilty. If there's nobody out there overtly expecting you to be doing more, then it's just a pressure you're putting on yourself and it's not reasonable. So when you do decide to go see her, you decide, okay, I'm going to go for half an hour, I'll go for an hour, and you just leave your ego at the door and you just give yourself for that hour and let her be exactly as she is. Don't have any expectations, but just, I mean, do you pace yourself? Do you go for a day, an hour? How do you work it out if you're
It's about, I usually say overnight, one day. I'm in Santa Fe. She's down 130 miles
Oh, I
south.
see what you're saying. So you go like one day and stay the night.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what you have to decide to do is, okay, you're going to go there for 24 hours. Is it 24 hours?
Mhm.
Let's say. So you just decide, okay, I'm going to go. I'll leave my ego at the door. I will be whatever she needs me to be for 24 hours. Really decide in advance, and just know you're going to do whatever you have to do. Wash the dishes, clean her feet, laugh at her jokes, let her be angry, let her be paranoid. It doesn't matter. And just know you be loving, you be kind, you thank her, you say kind words, you show a kind aspect, and then you go.
Yes. Thank
You understand my point? You've got to make this decision in advance. Decide that you're hers, and is your dad happy that you come as well? It must be a relief for him.
My dad is not happy.
What? He's
But
what?
that's the story with that's a separate be
Oh,
your
okay,
own
okay,
session.
whatever. But just it's because she needs you right now. Do you have a Buddhist practice?
Yes.
I'm just asking. So do you say mantras and things? Because she needs to hear mantras as well.
Yes, I have been trying to tell her that at her because I think at her stage I've heard from advice from geshes that reciting mantras is best for her.
Yeah, so
And
just
she
don't have to
does.
tell her to do it. You just do it yourself. Or you have, like, maybe you're there and you just have on your iPad or your phone, let's say, for example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche singing the Medicine Buddha mantra really quietly in the background.
Yeah, she
You
would
don't
love
even have
that.
to tell her it's a mantra, but it's a very
Yeah.
pleasing sound and it will bless her mind unbelievably, darling. You couldn't give her a more precious gift than that. And that was going to hook the energy of the Buddhas to bless her. Just have it on really quietly in the background. She won't even have to know what it is. It'll just go, but it'll go in. That's the greatest gift you can give her. And just be there for her for that period. Put your ego at the door. Be there for the 24 hours and then you leave again. It's very precious. Very, very important. You understand, darling?
Yes, thank you
Good,
very much.
good, sweetheart. Be brave. Hello, people. What else, dearest people? Anything else? I mean, it's so good that you recognize attachment. This is a very hard one. I mean, it's because it's so subtle. You see, this is why the deepest level of attachment is the one I just said. There's attachment to sex, attachment to drugs, attachment to this, attachment. They're obvious, but this one is just this is the assumption one. This attachment is this assumption that somehow only the good thing should happen. And that's why we're so fragile. That's why we get upset so easily when bad things happen, when unhappy things happen, when the things that attachment doesn't want happen. It's because of that assumption. It's very subtle. It's hard to see it. That's why we get freaked out. That's why we suffer. And then it's as well as other things there. But so to have the courage to notice that and then just kind of, like I said to you, just leave your ego at the door and just allow her to be the way she is and not try to resist it and pressure and push it away and resist it, which is what aversion does when attachment doesn't get what it wants. Just let her be. It's just, and when we can do that, it's a great relief. It's a great relief. It becomes like, as our mothers would tell us, water off a duck's back. Otherwise, we take everything personally. We take the whole universe personally. You can see that when people are really crazy, the whole world is like this enemy getting at them. And that's what paranoia is. Everybody sees everybody is doing something to them. Well, that's how we are all the time. We take everything personally. We're so self-centered. It's incredible. What else, people? Ask some more questions. Bring up another point. Yeah, somebody. Hello, Kathleen.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you for your teachings.
Okay.
I have a question. I had an incident at work the other week that made me angrier than I've been in a really long time.
Wow.
I've been working on my mind. I'm, not tooting my own horn here, but I've been,
Oh, it's good. Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, working on my mind, working on the delusions. But I got so angry. This incident, this thing outside of myself, that I made myself sick. My blood pressure went up.
Lord,
It lasted 4 days,
my God.
and so so my question is tomorrow. I have to have a meeting with these two people that made me angry. Made me
So I have to
angry.
get a bit of a sense though first. Are these people, in terms of work world, are they your boss or are they you are their boss? What's the relationship? That's important.
So
That's it.
there's confidentiality, but I'm
Yeah, sure, just very
I'm
general.
I'm a I'm a teacher, so I'm essentially a service provider,
Okay.
and they are recipients of my service.
Okay, good. Okay.
And so this incident, in they made a mistake, but they're blaming me and my support staff
Okay.
for their error. So
Okay.
tomorrow there's a big meeting.
So you
Um,
have to confront this point out the mistake to them.
I will have other people who are at a higher level than I am to assist with confronting this
So
mistake.
they support you then.
Yes, but
That's an
I will.
important point. That's an important point. That would make you feel very secure.
Yes, but they have told me that the people who caused this incident will almost not likely admit their mistake.
No, that's fine. So then the question is, what's the
So
question?
I dread going to this meeting,
Yes, of course.
and just advice on what to do,
I
what to do,
understand. I understand. So
do
what
with
you're
my
talking about, yeah, you said this anger, which is which is what the response when your attachment didn't get what you wanted, which is why you're
mind.
suffering. I mean, there's still objective reality here. These people did something wrong and they're not taking responsibility. So but I have to, in order to answer the question too, I also have to know what's the outcome of this meeting. Does it have to be a certain way? I mean, does the outcome have to be that they admit their mistake? And if they don't, then what? I mean, because I can't answer until you tell me that.
The what they want is change. They want changes to the services that I provide.
Because they think you're wrong. And
Yes.
you know you're right, and yours other people think you're right. So then, but what do you want from the meeting? So this has to have to ask you that question. What do you want from this meeting? Then I can answer you.
I don't want to get angry.
No, but I can't say that. The outcome. What outcome do you want from this meeting? Because if I could say to you, then don't care. I could say to you, don't go. I could say to you 27 things, but you are going to the meeting and you've got a certain objective reality there. So what's the outcome that you think objectively there should be from this meeting? Then we can look at how to deal with it. What's the
Well,
outcome?
I don't really care one way or another if they get what they want.
So you don't,
It,
I'm now confused. So why bother having a meeting if that's the case?
that's a good question. They called the meeting.
So they called the meeting because they're convinced you did something wrong, but you know you did something right, and they want you to change. Are you prepared to change?
Yes.
To give them what they want?
I have no choice if I want to keep my job.
But you just said your superiors support you.
I know, but we're in a difficult legal situation
Oh, I
with,
see. Well,
yes.
honey child, so listen, if that's the case, okay, now I'm understanding. So if it all means that you want to keep your job and there's some legal, it could get really bad if you don't, then honey child, you know, bite your, what do they say? Bite your tongue, be humble,
Be humble.
present your case, but be humble and do whatever needs to be done to keep your job if that's what's most important for you. then do that. But then look at the anger one, your anger. So just talk about the anger for a second, because that's why you're suffering. Talk about the anger. You said more than you have been for a long time.
For a really long time. It was like a wave that overtook my body. I could think of nothing else.
Than what these people are saying. You hear
What
the words in your head.
what they said.
Yeah, I hear it.
I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't sleep. I overate. I'm a low blood pressure person, and I could feel my
Oh,
blood pressure go
so
up.
basically they criticize you. Is this? That's what the words were criticizing you. Is that right?
It wasn't words. It was their actions.
But they're
And
criticizing you effectively. They're finding fault in you.
they did certain actions. I saw them do it from a distance. They don't know that I saw them, and they're blaming the incident on myself and my support staff. And they're denying what they're saying
Okay.
I didn't.
Okay. But so therefore there's no, you're saying you don't care what the outcome is because it could get worse and become legal and you want to keep your job. So then you have to, if that's the case, you have to give up expecting them to own their mistake. You have to give up completely.
Yeah.
I'm still a bit confused, because if the bottom line is you want to keep your job, then you got to do whatever you need to do to keep the job. And I suppose then you just have to work on your mind and look at so the real practice is, forget them, is to observe how powerful anger is, how aversion's always, it's in your mind, but perhaps you're a kind of person in your daily life. You're a kind of person, are you, that doesn't run around shouting and yelling? Is that more your nature?
I do not run around shouting and yelling.
Okay, so this is really good. It's probably because of your practice that you're seeing your mind now more clearly than you would have once. So, and that's good. So be happy about that. Be happy that you're seeing your aversion, seeing your anger, this outrage. How dare they do this when you know you were right and you know they're wrong? So that's a really powerful practice for you. That's the real answer. You eat the shit, baby. You take the blame. This is the most tremendous practice. You can put atomic bombs under your own anger. And given that you said you've got to do navigate this because you want to keep your job, then, whatever happens, happens.
Mm.
So it's huge. That's very private. That's your private practice. Nothing to do with them. And that just shows also your attachment, because attachment wants everything to be lovely. Attachment wants to be seen and heard as a good girl. And it's very shocking to us when we see it so nakedly the opposite. Of course, this is why we practice. So eating the shit, taking the blame internally is like putting atomic bombs under it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Venerable. That was very helpful.
Good, darling. Good. Be brave. My goodness. What else, darling people? What else is there to talk about? Other things that have come up for people. I mean, it always comes down to attachment and aversion. It's like boring, isn't it? But this is the bottom line, This is the bottom line. This is why we suffer.
Maybe I can just add to Kathleen's question that I was.
Who is talking to me? I can't see. Who is it?
It's Bade.
Oh, hello, Bade. Talk to me. Yes, sweetheart.
Yes, I just wanted to add to Kathleen's question because I found myself in a similar well, maybe not similar, but in a difficult position at work, and I did not eat the shit.
Okay.
And now I don't have a job. So
Well, there you go. Well, you can decide, you've got to decide what's worth it.
Yeah.
Different times, different things, you've got to decide. Sometimes you've got to stand on your, and not eat it. That's perfectly fine. As long as you do whatever you do, just being passive and doing whatever you think people expect of you, that's not an answer. But if you stand your ground and then you end up losing your job, that's okay. It's a learning. Or if you decide it's not beneficial, then either way practice. Either way can be practiced, depending on the situation and the time. So it's up to what Kathleen wants, really, the outcome. It's up to what Kathleen wants, really. In the end, each one of us is that, isn't it? What else, people? What else, people? Questions? Something? Anything? Any topic at all? Come on. We have 15 minutes. So, okay, you know, like, okay, you know. Yes, who is that? Hello, Brian. Talk to me. How's everything in Los Angeles? Unmute, sweetie pie. There you go.
Thank you for your teaching, Robina.
If
Yeah, in LA, the storm just hit 2 hours ago, so we
Oh
have
my God.
3 days of this now. So
Oh my
fingers
Lord.
crossed.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah.
Okay.
Just it's interesting, just from what everyone's been talking about this evening.
Yes.
In Western psychology, we often talk about codependency, which I think is attachment.
Yes.
And I think whether you're dealing with someone that's sick, whether you're dealing with a work situation, whether you're dealing with someone that has an addiction, our attachment, we always want to go in and fix everything.
That's exactly right.
We are addicted to fixing everything. And when we cannot control the situation, we freak out. And I think a lot of us, especially if you're like a caregiver,
Yes.
you have to be careful because you get sick yourself because it's making you crazy. You
That's right.
cannot fix it. And they talk about, letting go,
That's
which I think from this discussion this evening is the point, is that at some point we have to understand we cannot control everything.
That's just all that is that talk as you're saying it. I hear it so well. That's just another way of saying this is the Buddhist view is that attachment is this junkie that wants everything to be lovely, and that means we want to try and control it to make it the way we want. So that's so it's incredibly powerful to just like you're saying, there's a Western way of saying it. It's incredibly powerful to give that one up and just do what we can to like Bade to her mum, just do what she can to recognize we can't change everything. Control freak's a great word for attachment. Yeah, got to make everything the way we want it. Otherwise, you have a mental breakdown.
Yep.
And that's exactly right. That's why we suffer. It's exactly the way of putting it. It's so true, Brian. Exactly right. And it takes enormous courage to do that, to allow her mother to be exactly the way she is, Well, for Kathleen at the work, as she's decided in advance, she wants to keep her job, allow whatever happens to happen, So it's very powerful. It's scary as hell because attachment is this junkie that only wants everything to be the way I want it. I mean, that's what you're essentially saying, what you're saying in the Western way, isn't it? So true, Brian.
And also, I think when you let go of things, it's incredibly powerful and freeing.
Oh, that's give up attachment. It's freeing.
Yeah.
It's, right. Because you then can accept the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it is. Mum is this way. This job is this way. But it's tremendously difficult because when we understand the level of subtlety of attachment, the way Buddhism describes it, it's wow, it's mind-boggling to realize, This is the point. And this is what all Buddha's saying is this is what happiness comes from. Being able to accept. I mean, if you can change something, change it. They have this saying, if you can change something, change it. But what if you can't? And the words are so simple, but my goodness, this is really what day-to-day practice is, Brian. You're absolutely right. So true. That's why, the Buddhist way of saying it is not the same, but it's not as if this is knowledge that's coming from the sky. It's sort of evident to anybody with half a brain, isn't it? It's so clear in the world. It's so clear. So true. Thank you, Brian. That's really true. So
Thank
true.
you.
I'm good, darling. What else do people? And that's why, that's where, like say Bade's point, her mum, right now, she's just telling us she's not particularly worse or better than any of us, because her own anxiety, her own attachment for things to be nice, therefore the aversion that arises when she sees her mum. So when she goes there with her guilt and her anger glasses on, then her mum appears in an awful way. Whereas she comes in with her non-attachment glasses on, she'll immediately have more empathy. You'll be more patient, and you'll be able to give your mum a hug and tell her you love her and let her be exactly as she wants. And you will have more empathy, and you will feel better about it. That's the point. That's another way of saying what Brian says, you'll be able to see her more clearly. And the other one, Buddy, too, this is where we can learn from these experiences. You know, this is your mum. This will be you soon, babe. This will be you soon, Buddy. We all don't think we're going to go crazy. We all don't think we're going to lose the plot. But you know, people lose the plot out of the blue, even when they're young. You know, people start becoming paranoid or losing their memory. So the big learning is, you know, this is going to be me. So not waste my life, not waste my life, not waste my life. You know. This will be me one day. Suddenly your mum was young and vivacious once, and now look at her, you know. So to remember, this will be me. This will be me. So make the most of your life and don't waste it. Yeah, isn't it? And have such compassion. My goodness. Wow. Well, you people, I don't know what to say now. There's so many kinds of little meditation techniques that we can do that help us do all these things, you know. And one of the ways is just this, it always sounds so simple. You know, this Mahamudra is actually a very advanced technique. When you hear about it, it just seems like a simple technique. And theoretically, it is, but it can be very beneficial. I mean, it is an advanced practice when you do it fully. But the first part of Mahamudra practice is just observing your thoughts, you know. So in other words, using say, Bade's example or Kathleen's example, which is really intense. Like, okay, Kathleen's is a good one because she said it was so fierce, this aversion, this shock. So one approach is just to simply sit there. What you see, what concentration meditation is, you have to have an object to focus on. It's like training your mind to stay focused. Concentration meditation is training your mind to not get absorbed in all the stories, to sit back. So if you're watching your breath, that's one thing. But this other one, you simply watch the thoughts. In other words, for, you know, Kathleen's example, which is, it sounds very, it's hard to do it because we're having this intense conversation with these people in our head. So it's really hard, but it's so beneficial just to sit there bravely and observe all those crazy thoughts. Observe your angry thoughts. Observe it as if there's another little watcher in there, simply watching it, but don't get involved in the conversation. It's very powerful, I tell you. And that's how we should be doing as much as we can. Because what we're doing half the time, Kathleen's example, because the anger became extreme, but most of the time, what we're doing is we're absorbed in whatever thoughts are there. We're not noticing because we're busy with the outside world. When the thoughts aren't emotional, we're not noticing, but we've got these constant stories. We're constantly got a dialogue and we're not even aware of it. So what we've got to do is sort of step back from the dialogue. And when we look at our mind, we tend to think, well, I mean, my mind is terrible. It's a mess. Well, let it be a mess. The key thing isn't to not have the thoughts. The key thing is to allow the thoughts to be there. Mind your own business, step back, let the angry thoughts come, let the angry thoughts go, and try and watch, you know, not involve. It's very beneficial, can be very scary because we don't rather not have the thoughts. Learn to observe the thoughts, let them come and then let them go. And of course, most of us are not going to get single point of concentration in this life, but the benefit that comes from this kind of technique in day-to-day life is huge, because normally, like I said, we're just absorbed, unconsciously absorbed. And it's only when the strong emotion arises that you notice the thoughts, like Kathleen's example. So if you're just sitting there 5 minutes in the morning and you're just observing clearly, not spacing out, just observing the thoughts, letting them come and let them go, not engaging, then you bring that skill to bear when you get off your cushion and go down to the kitchen. And there's your hubby. I always use a simple example. There's your hubby slurping his coffee. The tiniest thing that would normally cause you to be angry, upset, annoyed, irritated, you know. But now you're observing, yes, the slurping of the coffee, the external event, but you notice the aversion in the mind. And because you're practicing noticing your thoughts, whereas once you just be blurting it out your mouth, this time you observe your thought and you zip the lip. You zip the lip. You see the anger and then you argue with it. Because that's another approach. You can let it just come and go, but another approach when you're in your daily life is you can have this dynamic discussion with your thoughts. Give it a break, Robina. He's only slurping his coffee. It's just called slurping the coffee. It's not that bad. Give it a break. You know, you argue with it. This is day-to-day practice of being your own therapist, I tell you. When it's really intense, like with Kathleen's example, so intense, it's too hard to argue with it, so you let them just be there, you know, observe. Let them just be there. Then when the mind is more quiet, we can do some analysis of them, you know, like that. So people, for the last 4 minutes, why don't we just watch our thoughts? Be comfy, sit up straight so you don't go to sleep in this last 4 minutes, and simply observe whatever is popping up in your mind. Don't worry about what it is. Don't conjure any thoughts. Don't have conversation. Don't think they should be there. Don't think they should be there. They shouldn't be. Just observe your thoughts for 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Clearly, crystal clear. Just observe. Let them come and let them go. Let me go. There's 3 minutes, 3 quality minutes, okay? So remembering that we're a work in progress, remember we have a way to go. Remember it's a work in progress. Sometimes we can get bored, go, oh, getting up again, oh, going to sleep again, like as if you're just repeating yourself, you know? No. Every day you have thoughts, you're growing yourself. Every time you make an effort, you're growing yourself. You're a work in progress. Constantly moving forward every second, every second. So be delighted in our progress and rejoice in our progress. And know we have this marvelous potential, and know that our mind is not set in stone. Changchup Semchok Rinpoche Make Panam Ke Guchi Ke Panyampa Mepa Yang Gongne Gondu Shog. All right, darling people, that's it. And I thank you, everybody. So kind. Thank you for having me. See you all again soon. Much love.
Thank you, Robina.